Look, man, we're screwed. I mean, we don't know. No, Democrats don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. The Democratic Party is going through a massive set of internal crises. You have a party that got trapped.
Van Jones dropping a truth nuke on how screwed dopey Democrats are as the party swears up a storm to stop the orange menace. Right now, Democrats are struggling to land on a coherent policy or even a message to oppose President Trump, unless it's nicely printed on a paddle. And now they think cursing like drunken sailors will somehow make the American people like them again.
That ain't true.
It's total absolute.
Somebody slap me and wake me the up.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk and his hackers don't know.
To think that Elon Musk or Donald Trump give a about our public schools.
Trump. I don't swear in public very well, but we have to Trump.
But Democrats should focus less on the profanities and more on persuasion. But even that skill's lacking. Hakeem Jeffries somehow thinks his party has the Republicans running scared.
We have the Republicans on the run on three core issues. They are on the run in terms of the economy, in terms of healthcare, particularly as it relates to Medicaid. And we have them on the run with respect to the GOP tax scam. We have them on the run. And we're going to keep our foot on the gas pedal.
And President Trump's delighted as he sits back and watches his opponents implode.
There's something wrong with him. It's just something, I can't even believe it. The Democrats were having their little signs up, their little tiny signs. And I said, it's unbelievable. They don't get it. They don't get it now. And I think they're going to end up being a minor party if they keep going like this, because people don't want to hear about these stupid ideas that they have.
All right, Greg, as someone who uses profanity quite often.
Not often, actually. I use
often at work.
Yes, I'll give you that.
What is the strategy with the Democrats dropping the F-bomb like this?
Well, they're struggling for an identity, much like you, Jesse. And they think that shock value might work. But I want to start with Hakeem Jeffries, because he's saying that Republicans are running scared when actually it's a victory lap. And I'm watching him. This guy is no Nancy Pelosi. He's Nancy Grace. He's presiding over a crime scene, the death of his party. I don't think they have anybody right now in the party that can express 1 ounce of honesty. There's a huge hole in this Democrat Party, and it can only be filled by one real person. Sadly, that person is here sitting at that table, this table, Harold Ford Jr. And if you don't come forward, your party's done. Anyway, I was watching Van Jones, and I think he opened the window of a future, and that is laughing.
Yes.
That is like the first time you've actually seen somebody laugh on CNN, in ages. And maybe having fun at the expense of your losing can take you in the right direction. With the swearing thing, everybody does it, but doing it all at once is another piece of evidence that they cannot think for themselves. And you notice, there is no organic outrage or protests over these dramatic reductions in immigration. There's none. Nobody's on the street. Nobody's on the street about trans, and nobody's on the street about the death of DEI. So what does it tell you? They never cared. This was never real. All of this was fake. That means this outrage isn't real either. That is why they're doing it all at once. It's just odd how easily all of these bad things have been fixed, and there's no pushback. So when you see the swearing and the singing and the crying, you realize it's about as real as Dylan Mulvaney's Knockers. It's all theater. It's almost like drag. You know how drag is a performance that isn't based on authenticity. It's based on extroverted, campy drama. It's like, we know they're not women. They're acting like, and it's the same thing with the Democrats. No one believes they're actually engaged in the real world. It's just surface level theatrics. Generally, the media would, be compliant and salute it, but they don't exist anymore.
Have you ever been to a drag show, Dana?
I have not, but I look forward to it. Are we going?
The field trip.
The field trip? One of the things about the cursing is that I was thinking, I don't have children, but maybe this happened with you guys and your children. When they learn a curse word and then they try to use it for shock value and to get your attention. And I feel like the Democratic Party is like, I don't know whether they're saying to them, we like this, do it more often, or that because the parents are not reacting, they just keep doing it until they try to get some reaction.
Jesse Jr. says booty now. He thinks that's really funny.
Where do you learn that from?
His sisters.
Have you been?
Not me.
The older sister.
The older sister.
I do think that the Van Jones segment that we watched, that might be the first time I've seen any Democrats laugh since November. And that would be a healthy thing to do. Like, you have to at least be able to say, wow, we really stink. And he was willing to do that. But there is somebody on the Democratic side, it's not at this table, who is getting crowds, and he's not getting a lot of attention for it, but I'm going to tell you about it. Bernie Sanders, probably the most authentic Democrat in leadership right now, maybe except for John Fetterman. But Bernie Sanders is who he is, and you can like him or dislike him. He's been going out and doing these huge rallies. He's getting crowds of I know it's not a Trump crowd, but it's a 4,000 people in Kenosha on a Friday night. He had another 2,600 people away just the next morning, just a few hours away in Altoona, Wisconsin. Then he went to Detroit. He got 9,000 people in suburban Detroit. AOC is going to join him on the road. And the Democratic Party, there might be life in the old gal yet. And maybe Bernie Sanders at 83 years old is going to figure out a way to pull it out of them.
Did you see who he had there, that trans folk singer that said God has a huge...
Yes, I did. No, I did not
don't
see
think
that,
that's
but I
going
saw
to fly.
That. It might not fly.
At the Doge,
I
the
don't
folk
even
singer.
think Bernie Sanders like that.
Yes.
Getting out on the road's good. Harold, do you think that's a good tactic for your party?
Hope everybody had a good weekend. And it's good to be back. I don't know. Bernie Sanders isn't the future of the Democratic Party. I think it's great that he's out, and I think Dana's point is
He's not
probably
in
a little
DC
tongue in
holding
cheek
a
that
tiny
he is,
microphone.
right, that he's at least doing the things you have to do. I think there's a lot of frustration amongst Dems. I think that's why you hear the cursing. I hope it ceases. I hope whenever anyone in my party wants to curse or to really exclaim themselves in profoundly emotional ways, to think about substance. This weekend, or even the last few days, I thought President Trump gave us a good piece of advice when he told us to stop holding up signs and to get more serious. President Trump said something on the last 24 hours that I find remarkable that we hadn't touched on yet. He was asked if he thought that the country might be going into a recession, and he said, who knows? And it made me think if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, if she'd been elected, or even Barack Obama had answered a question like that, I would rightly criticize him. And I think some around the table, if not all of us, would say, how can the leader of the strongest, richest, most important nation in the world say something like that? Now, we've seen the stock market do what it did today. It's down 2,000 points a Dow is just in the month of March. That's not an indicator of everything, but it certainly is a daily scorecard. And the question I have is for Democrats, why not begin to ask these questions? Why not begin to fashion answers to how everyday Americans who put the president over the finish line, President Trump, that is, in November, who may be wondering why prices on the things that they need the most at home are going up, or why it's much harder to invest today than it was before. I think raising challenges is part of it. You then have to develop answers. So every time you think about cursing and every time you think about singing, please don't. Think about ways in which you can offer serious answers. When the only way you offer serious answers is to begin to think about the questions on the minds of voters. I agree with you, Greg. There's so many cultural issues that we just lost track of and frankly lost a sense of common sense about. The president had that right. But I can tell you, most of the American people, working class, who went to vote for President Trump, don't want to see what's happening in our economy happening today, especially if they don't know what the end game is. If it's tariffs we want, if it's paying down the debt we want, if it's just a tax cut we want, the president should give us that. And Democrats, if you don't ask these tough questions, the president doesn't have to answer them. So stop singing and stop cursing.
Let's go to Judge Jeanine, who's never uttered a swear word in her entire life.
Of course not. Of course not.
Don't tempt her.
You could go online and you can see I've never said boo. Look, to me, the Democrats are like a bunch of potty-mouthed kids. I think they believe that if they swear that they're real and they're relatable and that the American people say they're just like us. but they're not real and they're not relatable because they say everything in unison. They copy each other. The curse words are the same. And, you know, there was a gentleman who said at the end there, and I don't know who it was, he said, Donald Trump and Elon Musk don't give it an SHIT about our public schools. And I couldn't help but think, you think Joe Biden did? How many billions did we put in the public schools, and our kids were not allowed to go back to school because there was no metric that would allow the kids to go back to school, according to the Democrats and the unions. But let's just talk about the fact that the Democrats have tried everything. He was a Russian puppet, and then he was a Nazi, and then he was a threat to democracy. And then, you know, Elon Trump is taking over. And then it was, you know, Trump is not happy. He's going to get rid of Elon Musk. And they go on and on. They make this stuff up. Then it's F both of them. And then it's like they're full of SHIT. And they go on from there. I mean, is that really what your party's about?
She spelled
They just can't go. Yeah, I'm spelling it. They just can't go there. But I think what's interesting about this segment is that Shapiro and Tim Walz have now decided the way for the Democrat Party to succeed is to go on podcasts. What kind of podcast? Sports podcast. I don't know anybody who gives a darn about what Shapiro thinks or Tim Walz or Andy Bashir about a sports team. Plus, why would they do that? Think about it. You're going to automatically, you know, tee off half of the sports team, the other half the opponents of the team. So they're trying to copy Trump, and they don't know what to do, and they're so frustrated. They're like a bunch of kids who can't articulate how they feel, which reminds me of when my grandson was learning to talk, and I'm sure Jesse Jr. too. They would get very frustrated, and they would cry, and they would scream, and then you have to say to them, say with your words, what do you mean?
Yeah,
and
Gigi's stomping her feet now.
Yeah, and you have to say with words. And then they learn. Democrats haven't learned.
All right. Thank you very much, Judge Janine. Up next, anti-Musk wackos are now taking out their rage on Tesla dealerships.
Onto this, anti-Elon Musk protesters are taking their anger out on Tesla cars and dealerships. We have brand new photos of the man accused of firebombing a Tesla dealership in Salem, Oregon, causing $500,000 worth of damage. Surveillance photos show the suspect walking towards the Tesla dealership before Molotov cocktails were thrown at the building, a red Tesla bursting into flames, and then the suspect allegedly threw a rock and shattered the dealership window. When investigators arrived on the scene, they found more Molotov cocktails in the parking lot. And on top of this violence, the liberal media is now mocking Elon Musk, celebrating the failure of SpaceX's latest rocket launch. Watch.
Tonight, Elon Musk blew something up and disrupted the lives of thousands of Americans. For the second time in less than 2 months, a rocket launched by Elon Musk's company SpaceX exploded and rained potentially dangerous debris down over a wide area of Earth, causing real chaos for planes and airline passengers.
It is the second consecutive Starship test flight from Elon Musk's company to end with destruction.
All I could think about was, oh, I can't sing.
No, please don't. That's good. That's good. We got it. We understand how painful that was for y'all out there. Just as watching these things blow up. His response to all of this was rockets are hard. And Mr. Musk, if they're so hard, why don't you go back to your day job and work that out? And leave those of us who do government to do government, because you can't do both.
Wait, he doesn't do government. I thought they got rid of him at the RNC because he doesn't do government.
A TV host, yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Nobody would ever confuse me with doing government. I mean, unless I wanted to.
You wouldn't lie about it either.
No.
But, here's the thing. It's so patently unacceptable, I think, to root for any kind of damage like that, because there's a real fine line between burning cars in the parking lot and, oh, it's only, you know, damage to things. What if someone was working late? What if you threw and the wind gusted? There is no end to the possibilities. And for there to cheer failures of that rocket ship, for them to cheer burning of Tesla car, there is no place for that here.
So the question that I have, and, you know, the liberal network that, look, and never by the grace of God could go anybody, but right now they're failing miserably and firing their people. So I couldn't be all wrong on that. But why would you wish for the death of the American economy? Why would you be against Americans? I don't think this is new. This is like when we saw the big crop up of anti-Semitism in this country last year. Where do you think it lived? Right next door. So these people who hold these views against America, this isn't like some rash that just came on. No, this is an infectious thing that's been around for a long time, and this is how they really feel. So think about that when they try to get you to vote for them, or as Michael Steele tries to convince you that he's in government. Think about that. He's a talk show host.
And innovation does not come, obviously, without trial and error. There are multiple no's before the yes. Every superstar has that story. Professional athletes, Olympians, and the like, including our space program, like the Mercury program, where there were explosions and losses of life. So to mock this trial and error period for someone that is putting themselves out there for the betterment of society, to me, just shows how ignorant these talking heads are, how embarrassing that they are, that they're continued to be given amplified positions.
Yeah, I mean, what they're trying to do is they realize they don't have a message, as we talked about, to the American people. So what they're trying to do is make Elon Musk this boogeyman. And they want him to be the boogeyman, just maybe kind of drive up turnout from Democrats in midterms and have really stoke fear as if Elon Musk is doing something so spooky when really all he's doing is trying to make our government more efficient, trying to root out a lot of the waste, fraud, and abuse. And so what do? You just start running these stories, mocking someone who is really, as you said, trying to focus on American innovation, which is something that benefits all Americans, not just one side of the aisle, but all Americans benefit from these types of explorations. And so it's sad to see somebody on the news making that kind of play.
Yeah, that's the first time I heard that. Michael Steele, leave government to those of us who do government. Mr. Steele, we tried that. And you know what you gave us? $36 trillion in debt, $9.1 trillion in inflation, 8 million people crossing the border, the fall of a country and the death of 13 heroes, and wars in 2 others. So we've let the government people try, and they've failed. Now let Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and rooting against SpaceX, for those who did that in that soundbite, they're trying to get 2 astronauts who have been stranded since the Biden administration out of space. So don't you dare root against SpaceX. Root for those 2 astronauts.
Yeah, and if you are showing up to a Tesla dealership dressed all in black, throwing Molotov cocktails and causing a car to explode, that's not just vandalism. That's a threat against somebody's life, and it should be treated as such.
Terrorism.
It absolutely is. And apparently, there are so many threats against Elon Musk right now, according to Lawrence, that his private security team had to be deputized so they could bring their gun to more events around the president. So it's just very unfortunate. This rhetoric only causes more damage.
Which is why it's incumbent upon those figures to understand the influence they have and to condemn all of this violence and to not cheer for failures.
More protests against Elon Musk happening in D.C. as the left takes aim at his electric car company. The NYPD arresting dozens over the weekend after they took over and shut down a Tesla showroom here in New York, with the glass door of the facility appearing to be shattered. And that's on top of other violence erupting at other Tesla locations, with reports of Molotov cocktails, graffiti, and even gunfire breaking out on dealership lots. Musk responding to the violence while speaking to Larry Kudlow.
When people criticize, say, what Doge is doing, we say, well, which part specifically? Because we put all of the actions of the Doge team on the Doge.gov website and on the Doge handle on X. So we post the receipts. So it's like this action has been taken, this action has been taken. So when we get criticism, we say, like, of what? Which line do you disagree with? Like which cost saving do you disagree with? And then people usually can't think of any.
So he's a lot calmer than these folks. Take a look at this media montage, we call it.
Listen, I think that there has been tension between Elon Musk and a lot of Donald Trump's allies for a long time now, and there's been growing confusion.
We have said as reporters for weeks and weeks that this relationship was going to come to a head. You have 2 alphas, 2 billionaires who see themselves as the center of attention.
Why don't you go back to your day job and work that out and leave those of us who do government to do government? Because you can't do both.
Greg Gutfeld.
Well, so he was saying that after one of the rockets went down this weekend. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I am useless, and because I can't fix anything, I can't help you with anything, I could just use my mouth. So I never forget that. Although man has been able to take all this raw material of Earth and create works of great power, it's only an insignificant few who do that. We're just along for the ride. You know, we think, oh, look what the great works that man has done. Man is about 1,000 people over. I've contributed nothing to progress, but at least I can recognize who does. You know, I don't cheer against progress. I support people who do. I mean, imagine laughing at Jonas Salk as he was trying to come up with the polio vaccine. These people save lives. I can't imagine these people being role models. You know, what is their message? If at first you don't succeed, just hang out with us, you know, because they don't have to do anything. I'm beginning to believe that progressives are regressive. And because they've been railing against technology, whether it's electric cars, whatever, I think they got to lose the progress on progressives and just call them sieves.
Sieves.
They're just sieves. Everything goes through them. They hold nothing. They're incapable of creating anything of value. From now on, they're sieves.
And they're organized, Jesse. To me, these look somewhat organized, and there's usually always something behind that.
Yeah, the billionaires that hate Musk are funding the Tesla terrorism. And I'm wondering, where's the media? This is not covered almost anywhere. They're firebombing Tesla stations. Why hasn't the FBI infiltrated Trantifa too? Because it's these trans Antifa people that are responsible. They seem to have been able to get underneath every single radical movement except Trantifa. I think Kash Patel needs to get on that. And I'm mad at Greg.
Why?
Greg, you can't come out here and say our jobs are insignificant. So what? This guy's an intergalactic pioneer. We saved this country from Kamala Harris. This show, you, me, you kind of helped herald it in your own way, but let's not put ourselves down. My Democrat sources, Dana, are telling me that they think attacking Musk is the wrong strategy. To go after him and oppose a person instead of a policy is really dumb, because they tried that with Trump. Remember, they attacked Trump's personality, and then he won in a landslide because they could kind of put his personality aside because his policies were popular. Same with Musk. He might not have a great approval rating, but cutting government is like 80% popular in this country. And their line of attack is silly. The judge brought it up earlier. You can't call Trump a dictator and then also call Elon Musk the co-president. You can't say he hires all loyalists and then there's like massive disagreements in a cabinet meeting. So they haven't really figured out what they're going to do yet, but this is not it.
And the other problem, Judge, you brought up last week is that if you have protests like this and there's violence, and let's say there's arrests, you can't guarantee they're going to be prosecuted,
right?
Especially in those two cities.
Yeah, because of the progressive DAs. But you know what's interesting about all this? I mean, aside from the fact that you've got the left going after, you know, the guy who created electric cars and for whom he was a hero. But, you know, do you remember when President Trump had that press conference with Elon Musk? It was very clear as the left tried to create this narrative that, you know, Elon Musk was a co-president, that, you know, Elon Musk comes out and says, I do what the president tells me to do. I'm here at the behest of the president. And then all this stuff about, you know, Elon Musk and the president then comes out and he says, you know, I'm going to take a scalpel to Doge cuts. I'm not going to do it with the hatchet anymore. So you know that clearly there is a president who is overseeing all of this, where there's not really this craziness that the left is creating this antagonist that everybody is learning how to hate, and they're throwing fits. And, you know, they wanted us to be deprogrammed. I mean, they got to watch themselves. I mean, the two alphas, they're definitely fine together, and America benefits.
How does the Democratic Party navigate this?
You're not useless. Don't ever say that. The Democrats, the Democrats. First of all, everyone has a right to disagree with whomever they want to disagree with. I don't espouse or promote or condone violence in any way. But if people want to stop buying his car, they want to protest peacefully, have every right to do that. Three, the president. You're right. I'm glad you raised that, Judge. It was President Trump. As it relates to Doge. And I think that's where a lot of this motivation and a lot of people are being instigated by some of the things that Mr. Musk is doing as it relates to Doge. And President Trump said two things. One, use a scalpel, not a hatchet. I think he's absolutely right, because there's some things in government. I think we have this weird, unfortunate notion that when we think about government spending and we think about it being excessive, people think about the worst things they think about in government, wherever you may sit. Democrats sometimes say it's too much defense spending. Some people on the Republican side say it's too many public assistance programs, welfare, and so forth. But when you really dig down into it, a lot of government spending is government investment that employs people, empowers innovation in places, creates opportunity for communities across the country. What I think people want is to find those things that are redundant. I think one of the things, and you said it, I think you said it one time, Dana, on last week or so, people love for them to dig down and figure out where are the redundancies with these contracts. Are we paying 5 people to do what one person should be doing or we only thought was doing? That's where I think he can be most helpful. And when Mr. Musk says, well, hey, no one can cite a program, I guarantee you, go to South Carolina, go to Alabama, go to Texas, go to Oklahoma, go to Kansas, where these congressmen and congresspeople are facing backlash because Social Security offices are being closed, veterans hospitals are being impacted. These are things I don't think you want to cut. But guess what? Whatever you have done and whatever you're doing, that's the impact that it's having. Again, Democrats, I would be focused on these things. Let's stop the singing. And let's stop some of the other craziness and get out talking about ideas, facts, and answers to those challenges.
All right, up next, Democrats are struggling for an answer on trans athletes after Gavin Newsom broke with his party.
Let's bring in Fox News contributor Steve Hilton and Magnify Media Partners CEO, political strategist Taylor Strand. Thank you both for coming on. Taylor, to you first. Trump made it very clear to his cabinet members today that they are in charge. Elon is not in charge, but Elon was in the meeting, and here's what the president said.
But I want them to do the best job they can. When we have good people, that's precious. That's very important. And we want them to keep the good people. And so we're going to be watching them. And Elon and the group are going to be watching them. And if they can cut, it's better. And if they don't cut, then Elon will do the cutting.
Elon was in the room. It's not really a swipe at him. In fact, he's sitting there like, this is kind of what I want. I want to have oversight, but I don't want to be the main guy.
Right. Well, what's amazing is if Joe Biden had brought in Mark Cuban to oversee and audit government waste, you would not hear one Democrat talking about, you wouldn't hear one Democrat talking about,
Right.
You wouldn't hear one Democrat talking about how we're trying to cut grandma's Social Security.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't hear anything about that. That's exactly what happens. But now you do because Elon Musk is involved. Steve Hilton, now there's a hold on tariffs. Fox News writes the following. President Trump on Thursday exempted most goods from Canada and Mexico covered under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement from his 25% tariffs for the next month. The tariffs went into effect earlier this week and will now be reinstated on April 2nd. Very quick turnaround here, Steve. I mean, he was like yesterday, nope, they're staying, now they're gone. What do you think is the reaction? What's the reasoning for that?
In the middle of those changes, you have real negotiations happening in real time, phone calls with the various leaders of these countries.
Yeah.
And so the decisions reflect those positions. I think it's very important in this whole conversation about tariffs to remember a couple of things. First, he has a mandate for this. He couldn't have been clearer. In the campaign, over and over, speech after speech, tariff man, what a beautiful word. So people may not like it, but the people of America voted for it.
Yeah.
Secondly, it is a big change. And so just as you see with big reforms over the years, where you're turning over from the past way of doing things, we got to give it time. We got to see how this works out. But he's got a mandate for it, and he really believes in it, and we'll see what happens.
And leaders of both the countries, by the way, you had Mexico and you had Canada, were both on the phone. We're both like, you know what, let's talk this out before we do anything. So kind of you move in that direction. Meantime, Al Green being censured, and then Democrats singing on the House floor. Watch this, top to bottom, watch it.
And that Representative Al Green be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker.
I mean, Taylor, we go back and we go to Tuesday night. There was a lot of kind of antics going on there. But you go back weeks, and the Democrats just appear to be lost. They're like in limbo, right?
They're so out of touch with the American people. I mean, the mandate was clear in this last election, what the American people want. And now we've got a president who actually has solutions to these problems. And all you see is the Democrats whining and complaining. And it's just a non-starter. And they're probably getting less viewers than the Kennedy Center has up until this year.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment.
Yeah.
Peter Doocy asking Trump, when we get information about the assassinations, and the president said the following, watch.
It's been 7 months. Why do you think we don't know more about the guy who shot you in the ear?
Yeah, no, well, and the second one with all of his cell phones. So I want to find the answers. I've told them. In fact, today I said, I want to find, we can no longer blame Biden for that one. He should have released that a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, Steve, is you're like, where's the information? And it's his administration, so he wants it out.
I've got to say, that is a perfect example of why this president, Donald Trump, is such a refreshing change. That is exactly the opposite of what you get from a normal machine politician who's constantly on the defensive and saying what there's some aide has written out for him. He's just telling the truth. He's saying, yeah, I want to know as well. And he's not just going to defend automatically everything that every single piece of the government bureaucracy does, because he's actually almost like the outsider pushing the bureaucracy on this issue and on Doge and all the rest of it. It's such a refreshing change.
Yeah. Steve Hilton, Taylor Strand, thank you both.
Well, in another cringy video, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries threatens Tennessee Republican Andy Ogles for pushing Democrats to be stripped of their committee assignments after their shameful display during Trump's speech.
These people are malignant clowns. Andy Ogles is a fraud, a complete and total fraud. You aren't throwing anyone off of any committee in the House of Representatives. Don't make me expose you to folks who don't know you.
Well, in Democrats' attempt to be hip and cool, social media stars Congressman Eric Swalwell dropped this video and the F-bomb too.
What a f***ing week, huh? You know how weird this week was? I went to the State of the Union, and the president didn't even speak. He just sat up in the visitors gallery like a total weirdo and let his press secretary do all the talking. What a week.
Well, profanity seems to be the new rallying cry. Democrats are now cursing up a storm.
Somebody slap me and wake me the up, because I'm ready to get on with it.
If you could speak directly to Elon Musk, what would you say?
Off.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk and his hackers don't know.
To think that Elon Musk or Donald Trump give a about our public schools.
It's total absolute
Trump. I don't swear in public very well, but we have to Trump.
Wow, it sounded like Morse code there for a second with all those beeps. Jeremy, it seems to be going well, that postmortem.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they are having a hard time. And really what it is when you don't have a message and you have nothing positive to present to the American people, when you have no plan, no strategy, you just start to just think they're now just going off the reservation, just, constantly swearing and just trying to howl at the moon to try to garner some type of, resistance to what Trump is doing because they have no message. And I think that's the problem right now, is that they are lost at sea. They have realized that the vocabulary that they've used for so many decades about, identity politics and, everything's about your race and oppression and victimness, they realize that whole narrative has failed. And they don't have the language to use anymore to actually persuade Americans. So now we're just seeing them throw anything at the wall that will stick. And as we can see, it's quite embarrassing for them.
Well, you say the victimization language has failed. Maybe Al Green did not catch that memo. Listen to him on his censure.
I had to sit in the back of the bus, the balcony of the movie, drink from a colored water fountain when the speaker decided that I would be removed. And then there was this motion, this resolution to censure me. It became obvious to me that I was not being treated as others were. Mm-hmm. And candidly speaking, it is invidious discrimination.
Okay, so Harris, it's invidious discrimination, except maybe it has to do with you were the only House member ever to disrupt a joint proceeding of Congress in that manner. And 10 of your colleagues in the Democratic Party voted to censure you.
I had Representative Gooden on last hour, and he was the person who took that protest card out of the woman's hand, the liberal lawmaker who was flashing the president with, disregard and whatnot as he was walking into the chamber. And he said, I voted on that censure. So he knew exactly what was going on in both those rooms, right? Both those occasions. And he said, well, what did this representative think he was going to get? I mean, this was beyond disrespect, and it fits into the category of why they're cussing at us. They're just out of ideas. And, some of these people did go to some of those Tony liberal organizational schools that we've been talking about, those Ivy Leagues. They've got expensive education, some of them. Why are they out of words? Oh, my goodness, that's all they do is know words. I'm confounded by the fact that they've got to cuss. They really have a license on bad ideas at this point when it comes to policies. People didn't want to hear about all that stuff that they were coming with. Yeah, you can go use the same bathroom as me. And if you dress like me, you're allowed to go in. That doesn't make you a woman, but we know they can't define women. This is across the board. So the question is, who will separate out in the Democrat Party? You cannot be part of the stuff and be quality at the same time. You've got to separate out and be a quality individual. Who among you will stand?
Yes. Well, Van Jones had some sanguine advice for his party. Listen to this.
Look, man, we're screwed. I mean, we don't know. No, Democrats don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. Somebody like Donald Trump, we thought we'd at least have Hakeem Jeffries in the speaker's chair to hold him back if we didn't have Kamala in there to do the right thing. And then offending most people in the country, calling everybody sexist and racist and transphobic and every other name, and then saying, please follow us. That's not a good strategy, folks. Defending a broken status quo and offending most of the country turns out is not as popular as my party thought it was going to be.
Carly is not wrong.
Yeah, no, he is not. And, between the election and the inauguration, there were a lot of reach across the aisle statements. I remember from Democrat Senator Tina Smith out of Minnesota. She said something like, this time around, I'm not going to jump on the crazy train and attack every single thing that Donald Trump does. So maybe she's not on that train, but there are a whole lot of Democrats that are. And when you swear repeatedly like that, that doesn't equal passion. It equals disrespect. And I think it devalues the job that the certain portion of the American people have elected you to do. And when Republicans were in the opposition party, they had a lot to run on. They had a lot to message on. The border, crime, inflation, because there were issues with the border, crime, and the economy. Democrats don't quite have that yet, so all they're doing is yelling. I do have to give one Democrat some credit here, because over the weekend I listened to an episode of Gavin Newsom's podcast where he's talking to Republicans, and he interviewed Charlie Kirk, and I thought it was fantastic.
I watched that.
Yeah, he really had a very good, solid conversation with Charlie Kirk, and even asked for advice. How should Democrats message this and that? And it is clear that he is doing this to reach a broader group of Americans. Clearly has the White House in his sights, but not to devalue or discredit what he's doing there. I mean, he's one Democrat that seems to be getting it right, talking to Republicans rather than cursing and yelling at them.
Emily, I do agree that it was very seductive to listen to him with Charlie Kirk. He's very good at kind of flipping the script, but he's the guy who called the emergency legislative session to oppose Trump. So I feel like there might be a sinister political motive here with his podcast.
It's clear. It's clear.
It's obvious political motive. Yeah. I'll say this. When I first heard Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries talk about malignant clowns, I actually wasn't looking at the screen when I heard that. And I thought that it was a Republican talking about those elected Democrat officials who refuse to stand or clap for wins for America and who have been engaging in just swearing. So hilarious that he was actually it was one of them. I'll say this, that the issue with them is that they're falling flat on policy. That's why, in part, President Trump said, look, keep it up. You guys are going to become a vastly minority party if you start voting with the 10 on 90-10 issues. I paraphrase what he said. And they're flailing. I love what you said about howling at the moon, because without the talking points, it's the ones that are thoughtfully engaged and their actual thoughtful discourse are the ones that are unique, and the ones, to your point, that came out and said, I did clap, and that is something to champion. But the squeaky wheel is getting the grease, and this absolute erosion of decorum that we've seen is somehow spreading like wildfire, and the thoughtful ones are not. So their leadership needs to do a little bit more, I think, than telling them to vote against the clean CR. I think leadership needs to have a come-to-Jesus meeting with them about their behavior, because it's unacceptable, and they're going to see it at the next ballot box.
Yeah, and they did have a meeting Friday. It was called a come-to-Jesus meeting, and apparently they berated their members. So I don't know if it's working or when these were...
Jesus was not there.
Not working.
The other night, I made a speech. The Republicans were going wild, and the Democrats were having their little signs up, their little signs, their little tiny signs. And I said, it's unbelievable. They don't get it. They don't get it now. And I think they're going to end up being a minor party if they keep going like this.
Yeah, there's the president with Maria B. arguing that Democrats could end up as a minor party if they don't revamp the message. What about that? Ro Khanna, Democrat out of California. How you doing, sir? Good morning. Thanks for saying yes today. Saw you yesterday on Sunday with Shannon Bream. You can address the major/minor party, or you can address Van Jones, who had this warning on Sunday.
Look, man, we're screwed. I mean, we don't know. No, Democrats don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. You know, somebody like Donald Trump, we thought we'd at least have, you know, Hakeem Jeffries in the speaker's chair to hold him back if we didn't have Kamala in there to do the right thing.
What now, sir? Hello.
Look, parties go back and forth in American politics, but as you know, I stood up for the boy with cancer. I stood up when the president walked in. That's not where we need to make the argument. We need to make the argument on the economy. And in that interview, the president also said that he's not sure if there could be a recession. And you've got unemployment that's ticking up. You've got inflation ticking up. Consumer confidence is down. The Trump team is calling those short-term adjustments. That's concerning. That's where the Democrats need to focus. What is our economic vision?
Okay, all right. What is that vision? I want to get to that because Alyssa Slotkin says you guys are on your back end. Watch.
I don't think it's a secret that Democrats have been on their heels since Trump won the election. I think it's on us to be clear about not only leadership, and there's lots of leaders in both parties, but also a strategy. We are still finding our footing, and I think you can't get better until you admit you have a problem.
I mean, what is the strategy? I mean, is it possum like Carville said, or are you going to go on the offense?
No, look, I think the strategy is to point out that some of their policies aren't working on the economy, that you can't cut $880 billion of Medicaid. That means the closure of hospitals and people being kicked off health care.
We don't know if that's happening.
Well, I mean, the Republicans passed that budget. I mean, they just passed the budget with, in their numbers, $880 billion of cuts. You can't have blanket tariffs on allies that ultimately gives the grocery stores the ability to raise prices. But then we could point out where they're making mistakes. We also need to point out our vision. We have a vision to become a manufacturing superpower by investing in new steel industries in this country, by having new shipbuilding, by having new aluminum. We have a vision to make sure every kid has technology education. I represent Silicon Valley with the future of AI. We should be setting up AI academies in different places. We have a vision for making childcare affordable, for making healthcare affordable, so costs go down. That's what the Democrats need to be focused on.
Some of those ideas sound really good. Can I ask you something you said to Shannon yesterday? You know, the Al Green censure last week?
Yeah.
You didn't like his behavior. I heard that loud and clear from you, but you didn't vote to censure him either. And you said, I didn't vote to censure him because he did not engage in violence or something like that. He left. He was asked to leave. He left. Would it have required him to act out physically in order for you to approve a censure?
No, look, Jonathan Turley criticized my answer. It probably wasn't my best one. Here's what I was trying to say. He spoke out. We have a robust First Amendment that protects political speech, but he disrupted the proceedings. It was totally justified for Speaker Johnson to remove him from those proceedings because he was speaking out in an inappropriate time and manner. But because of my commitment to a robust political speech, I think a censure goes too far. It would be a permanent mark. It would be chilling for speaking out in speech. And that, to me, is a balanced view. Now, if he continues to do it repeatedly, maybe then there's a view for a censure. But I just don't think, given our First Amendment traditions, that a censure was justified.
I don't know what's going to happen next year. Why did the Democrats walk him in?
They should have. I mean, you know, there's certain things in this country.
Can I ask you, who made that call?
I don't know, I assume it was our leadership who appoints that. But here's the point. I'll tell you what they were thinking, and maybe, Bill, you'd agree. Certainly you would agree that Elon Musk and the president should come to Congress before engaging in not spending congressionally appropriated money. And that they should make sure that they're listening to court orders. And there's a genuine concern, real concern, among people in our caucus that they're not following the Constitution separation of powers. And so my point, so they said, okay, well, let's engage in not escorting him in. I think we should have escorted him in and made the case to the American public that we have 3 branches of government and that needs to be upheld.
All right, listen, come on back soon. Listen, I heard a lot of Democrats over the weekend being asked whether or not they would vote for this continuing resolution. A lot of them were hedging, and it just leaves open the possibility that some in your party could vote with Republicans this week. You see that happening, yes or no?
Not on this current form, not with Medicaid cuts, not with the cuts they have. And, you know, Bill, look, they
didn't say it that way, though. So we'll see how it goes. Thank you for your time. I'm out of time today, and we'll talk again. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.